How are you?
I'm fine also.
Hey, Shad.
Hi, Christian. Hi, Maya,
Hello,
everyone.
Shad.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me, guys, right?
Yes.
Yeah, very
Very
well.
nice.
We'll have the chance to see you, Shad.
I don't have a camera because I have a desktop, so next time I'm gonna bring a camera. So
Bring a
right now
camera.
you can just stare like at my profile picture for now. Just imagine like I'm talking. Yeah.
Send me your address. I will buy a camera for you. I will offer a camera.
Oh, much appreciated. Thank you, Christian.
No worries. According to the cloud bill I have received, the camera is not so expensive. So
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's start the session. Welcome, guys, to our lightning talk number 2. And as we continue our Kubernetes month series that happened in January, we wanted to host a really special session focused on the topic that not everyone talks about, or it's not getting talked about enough, which is cost. And for that, I am very happy, or we are very happy, to actually have with us an extremely special guest, Christian Dossel. Welcome, Christian. Our
thanks a lot. I don't know what is funny, but
I'm
well,
actually really happy that
me
we
too.
had the privilege for you to join this session and to talk about a topic that not all me personally am having problems with in my job, which
Mhm.
is the cost in Kubernetes. So we're actually here to learn more, listen to your experience, have a very good discussion, and me and Shahad are gonna be shooting fires towards it. So I hope I hope you're ready.
Feel free, feel free. And if I do not know, I do not know. So there is no issues at all.
Okay, so beginning of why this conversation matters, of course, based on the Kubernetes month that we had, that Kubernetes is extremely powerful, it's flexible, and it's production ready tool. A lot of businesses are now trying to transition to this tool. But there's this thing that they always forget, which is the cost factor of actually using this tool. So I would like to start asking you questions, starting with some type of warm up. So the first question is when did you personally first realize that Kubernetes was actually becoming expensive?
Sure. Maybe if I may, Maya, I can just introduce myself a bit for the
Oh yeah, yeah,
context,
yeah, of
and
course.
then they will understand how we
Yeah,
Yeah,
can link
please.
the dot with my
Yeah, please go
experience,
ahead.
I would say.
yeah,
But I mentioned I'm not expert at all. I will just share my experience.
yeah.
Thanks a lot, Maya. Thanks a lot, Chad. So, as mentioned by Maya, I'm Christian, so engineering manager at TCM, formerly Finastra, a financial software company. Financial software company. So I manage teams of engineers building treasury solutions on the cloud, especially in Asia for the moment. I'm also from France, so with my typical French accent. And and over the last years, I've been deeply involved in the modernization of our solutions to cloud native and then leveraging the cloud computing. So this is a distinction very important to keep in mind. The cloud native and the cloud computing, I will tell you more about this.
Yes.
I went through Kubernetes adoption at every layer from the technical design, implementation, and also governance, and one very important part, the human onboarding part. As I said, I come from the financial services world, and where every dollar or tracked, every transaction is audited, and yet somehow our cloud bills should be managed properly. That's why along the way, I have also discovered the FinOps framework, which was a real game changer for me, and I will tell you more about it in this talk.
Yeah.
So thanks to Maya, I'm here today to share with you my experience, knowledge, but also the lessons I learned and pay also the hard way. Okay, I think for the context, it's enough, Maya. If you can repeat your first question. Yeah.
Actually, before
Yeah.
going into that question, I wanted to say that I again, we're so happy to have you here. You're actually the right person, even though you say you're not an expert. The posts you upload on LinkedIn and all of that stuff shows
Ah,
you are actually an expert. So I'm really happy that we're having this discussion with you.
yeah. Thanks a lot, Maya and Chat, for the invitation.
So,
Yeah, it's our pleasure.
sorry, Shah. Going back to our question is, when did you personally realize that Kubernetes was becoming extremely expensive in your personal experience?
Yeah, especially when we step into the cloud computing. Because as I said, our treasury solution is cloud native, which means that we rely on the containerization with Docker, orchestration with Kubernetes. And until the last 2 years, we are deploying on-premise, which means we are relying on Rancher cluster, dedicated VM, but located in our own data center.
Yeah.
And then recently, so 2 years ago, we had to move to the cloud computing, leveraging Microsoft Azure. And then we have realized that there are more complexity to manage. And one of the least misunderstood concept when you move to the cloud is that you start to delegating the infrastructure to a provider. But the delegation doesn't mean it's free. I mean that it's pay as you go, so you pay for what you delegate. And at that moment, I have discovered a mindset shift, paradigm shift from capital expenditure to operational expenditure. And putting my feet into the operational expenditure made me realize that with Kubernetes, when you delegate to a cloud provider, you have many things to manage, which can really increase the cost, especially the infrastructure part. Because before that, in the cloud computing, cloud native area, I was focusing only on the orchestration and the compute part of my services, of my solution. But now, delegating to Microsoft Azure, for instance, I understood that there has a cost related to the infrastructure, the storage, the network, and this complexity increased, and I discovered a kind of new world about this, because now I was responsible also for the bill. Is it clear?
I have it's very clear. Thank you, Christian. Well,
Yeah.
I have a question since you are working on a fintech domain,
Yeah.
and it's heavily regulated, and the compliance is a pain. And I know that for a fact because I used to work on a fintech companies.
Yeah.
How's managing the cost comparing to the compliance to make sure that you are having the lower cost comparing to the compliance, like for the French or the AU regulations?
It's simply we have to rely on the observability and monitoring, cost management, and we have a dedicated SRE finance in our organization for the governance. And thanks to him, to his work, we are linking the dot with the finance team. That's why we reconcile our metrics, our monitoring with him, and we reconcile on a quarterly basis if we fit this regulatory constraint. I mean, it's a process based on the monitoring, and it's also organizational. And I can link the dot later with the next question, especially about the governance, how we can put guardrails to ensure that we are still compliant.
Yeah.
But also, it's a process with the FinOps part.
Well, that's actually an amazing answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
Shad, it's there is a part of technical. We need to rely on the observability, monitoring, cost management, but also organizational, okay, and process.
So
Because you are taking care of the business side, because you are more of a technical person.
Yeah.
And you should have like at least to understand the business logic behind the organization itself, because you don't want to risk the compliance, since the fintech is very, very, very heavy regulated, and that's actually creating a problem. And sometimes, like adding or to add plugins and ads on inside, let's say the cloud environment, it's to make sure it's a compliance. Sometimes this is coming with a cost, so that's why like a lot of people they don't recognize this piece, because it's very critical and very important. If you are not being compliant with the current rules or with the regulations, you are having a risk at closing the organization, and you need to do the
Totally.
adjustments, and the adjustments is going to be a nightmare if you are not being compliant before. So I understand the point of view you are coming from, which is I completely feel you about the pain when you're moving from on-prem to cloud.
Yeah, exactly. I have just two keywords to add. In addition to what you said, Chad, you're totally right. The first thing is the awareness that why we are doing that, and if we are in finance, we are in a regulated area, so we have constraint to and compliance. This is the awareness, and the second thing is the discipline, because to having constraint can look painful, I would say, but if you put in place the right organization, the right automation, okay, plus the right discipline, the audit should be smoother, I would say. We should not be prepared for the audit at the last moment. It should be a continuous process on a daily basis, and I will highlight this in this talk.
Yes.
So basically, as you guys were saying, so you need to shift an organizational mindset, not just into cost but also compliance.
Yes, and I have two tools I will recommend in this talk.
Yes, you need to show us. But in your experience, what actually surprises the teams about Kubernetes cost? So when you started using Kubernetes, what has surprised you in terms of cost?
In terms of cost, I would say that when we start to move, we haven't faced any spike. It was not so obvious, you know. It was more, I would say, silent. I would say why? Because we are focusing on the application, on the compute part, which means that, for instance, about the cost, we start with the week one, okay, and we start to realize that there is an increasing accumulation of cost at the month one, and the worst case scenario at the month 12. Why? I will share with you one example. Is I understood quickly at the early stage that the cost is based on the number of nodes you're using, you know, on Azure Kubernetes, on the cloud computing. It's not based on the workload.
Yeah.
And at that moment, you know, when we start to deploy and so on, we have the kind of, you know, the safety margin syndrome, in which that we try to add in a generous way a resource request, okay, to ensure that the application won't crash and so on. That's why I was mentioning discipline, in a way that we need to right size properly our workload. So at the beginning, we are putting the resource request for our workload like this, and we are relying on a Kubernetes cluster on Azure AKS with a specific features, which is the node auto scaling.
Yeah.
And the thing is, as we do not pay so much attention on the resource request, on the right sizing, okay, so we have provision, I would say we have over provisioned the number of nodes we need at the beginning. And for instance, instead of having pods requesting 2 CPU and 4 GB of memory, we actually use 0.3 CPU and 500 megabytes, for instance. It's really lower. But we have multiplied that by hundreds of pods. And then at the end, we end with a fleet of empty nodes. And that's why the cost grows, I would say, not at the week one, but at the month one, month two, and so on. Another example, not still a spike, but something also silent. It's about persistent volumes. You know, we need some storage and so on. And we didn't pay attention also to the specific tier, okay, to choose the right tier we need. And sometimes we instantiate premium SSD. And also, we need also to put in place some discipline about, when we are in production. So we can keep this persistent volume, but we should not reuse the same configs on the development environment, because, we'll deploy on a daily basis and so on. And sometimes it ends with several, persistent volume which has not been deleted for months and so on. And the storage doesn't scale down, it only grows. So I would say these two main examples, not spike, but growing silently, and it's quite deadly. It's quite dangerous, I would say.
Actually, I want to, sorry, Shad, but I want to add something that we actually experienced, me and Shahad, at some point, which is if you're using CloudWatch logs, log and you do not set a retention time, because EKS actually generates megabytes and gigabytes of logs per day. And if you don't have a retention date for them to be removed, then your CloudWatch bill is going to spike over 7K. So that's the add-on I wanted to say.
This is a good example for a spike. It's true. We face that also. You were talking, just to complete what Maya said, you were talking about the retention log, but also we have to work also about the instrumentation. I mean that what we put in the log also, depending on the type of environment, maybe we do not need such level of logs. It has also its impacts about this. Please, Shad, I'm listening to you.
Yeah, so you mentioned that on the beginning when transitioning from on-prem to cloud, it's a very deadly silent of a cost, because you are still not being optimizing the whole Kubernetes. And since Kubernetes, like, it's being fully driven autonomous, if you put it on let's say autopilot, it's going to actually do the adjustments. Let's say if there is any resources or any node has been filled, it will adjust it automatically to open another node. Well, there is a lot of, let's say, of methods we can just optimize these costs. Like one of the methods is KIDA. So KIDA is focusing on it's event-driven method. So once we have I have a lot of requests and events, and we can trigger or make an automation or autonomous that the resources can go much bigger for that time of period. And once everything, let's say, a request is being relaxed and everything is being cut, let's say, the amount of the usage and the amount of the traffic has been lowered or go down, then the resources itself is going to be also going down. Is this something that you consider to use while doing migration, or after observing the cluster for 2-3 months?
Yeah. So interesting remark. I would say that, for instance, KIDA, I consider that as a tool for us, at the same level than Kubernetes as a platform, but it's still a tool for us for the orchestration. What you have explained, Shad, is I would say that Kubernetes will abstract the orchestration part, okay, the infrastructure and so on. KIDA will help to gather, I would say, event in order to trigger some actions like resizing the pod or things like this. But at the end, KIDA or Kubernetes will do only what we will ask them to do. And this was a kind of trap, in which we were into. It means that we are thinking that, okay, we will rely on Kubernetes with the default configuration. We enable the auto-scaling, and that's all. But finally, the key point after a few months was to try to identify the right configuration, the right sizing. You see my point?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the human part is really important, because Kubernetes or KIDA will do only what you will ask exactly. So once we were aware about this, we work in a proactive way on the right sizing and so on. About KIDA, Yes, this is something we are considering that, but we have preferred to put in place, the proper right sizing for resource requests, limits, limit range, and quota.
Yeah.
About this. And in a proactive way for the monitoring, we rely on CPU and memory with alerts. In that case, it's true that with Kita, we can extend the criteria for alerts from CPU to memory to something else, like the number of requests we have for one services, such criteria. But yeah, we will take this into account.
So I have,
sorry.
Sorry, Maya. Like, because I have a questions, one of the actually viewers, Muhammad, is asking how to manage operation expenses and capital expenses with Kubernetes, either on-prem or cloud or a hybrid environment.
It's I would say a wide question. At least as soon as we put our feet into the I would say expenditure, I would say even operational, I will rely on the FinOps framework, because there are three important phases. First phase is to inform, which means that we need to have a clear view about the cost in any way, any case, monitoring, dashboard, metrics, whatever. Then we need to optimize, right sizing, cost avoidance, avoiding, in operational expenditure, I mean, deploying when you do not need, things like this. And then we need to operate. So we need to put automation and to put the right governance. And this is a kind of cycle. This is something I would recommend if we need to manage the cost, even capital, and especially the operational expenditure.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean that, Chad, we have tons of tools, KIDA at Kubernetes level, quotas, we can put guardrails with Kyverno, policy as code, whatever. But the most important for me to manage the cost is this framework. Inform, optimize, and operate.
Okay. Let's write this on the chat. Inform, optimize,
and operate. This is the three main phases for the FinOps framework.
So another question we have is, what is the common misunderstanding teams have about Kubernetes cost?
Yes, I would say that I would say it's related to what Shad has explained. For instance, we can think that Kubernetes will optimize the resource automatically for you, with auto scaling, with scheduling, and so on. But you have a part in this responsibility, which means that Kubernetes will only allocate the resource or schedule according to the configuration you decide to put in place. That's why it's really important that from the cloud native part, that you really know how your software, your solutions works in that case. Yeah. Because by design, we need to make the right choice to impact the right configuration for Kubernetes to orchestrate your solution properly, but also efficiently from the cost perspective.
Yeah.
So it's more kind of awareness, I would say. Kubernetes is a tool, but it will act how we'll use it.
It's also cumulative. So based on your experience and what you have in work, and you need months to actually optimize your Kubernetes cluster, so you would have a very optimized, very clean Kubernetes deployment that is also inside of your cost efficiency pillar, let's say.
It's a never-ending
plan.
Never-ending. We have
you always optimize, you always inform, you always operate.
Yeah.
So once you did like a fintech, also once you like inside the fintech framework, you will never stop to optimize.
Yeah.
You never stop informing or operating. So it's a constant thing you are doing while you are working on the Kubernetes.
Yeah. And I will just add, compared to CapEx and OpEx, what you have mentioned, Shad, when you made the mistakes on the CapEx, I would say it's a one-time mistakes. because it's capital expenditure. You have to provision your budget on a yearly basis, for instance. But with the OPEX, operational expenditure, when you made a mistake, it can be a mistake which has an impact on a daily basis, hour basis, you see. So that's why the monitoring, the discipline, the FinOps framework I have described it, it's really important to put in place, especially in OPEX.
So, and our observability session that we made in Kubernetes month, we actually mentioned how observability is not just watching CPUs and memory, as you said. It also can contribute in cost efficiency and optimization of cost. So, what is the best like build of observability metrics and logs you would prefer that would actually help you in optimizing costs? Like you said, HIDA would give us more granular alerts. You would optimize even more than just CPU and memory. So how would you connect observability with actually cost optimization?
Firstly, I would say that as I said, your cost bill will be driven by the number of nodes you will instantiate. And this number of nodes will auto-scale properly according to the resource request of your workload. So for me, the most important thing from the monitoring side is to monitor properly the CPU memory consumption of your workload first. This is from the application wise, I would say. And by monitoring that properly, depending on your activity, if you have a QA campaign, if you have it's for development purpose, if it's in pre-prod or whatever, you should, I would say, right size properly your configuration for your workload. Because of this, if you don't have the proper resource request, I would say the risk for highest bill because of empty node is high because of this. I will also have a dedicated, I would say, monitoring on the infrastructure side, especially on the nodes, in terms of percentage of consumption on the node overall. Do we have, I would say, 50% of consumption or not? If not, and if the auto scaling doesn't scale down, I would say, and you have, I don't know, most of your nodes, half of your nodes only empty, here there should be something to optimize, I would say.
So also another question in regards of do you prefer separation of clusters, so having each cluster to each environment in regards of cost? So I would believe that you should separate clusters via environment, but let's talk about it more in the cost perspective.
Oh, sorry, can you repeat? I do not understand well. You would like to separate the type of environment?
So each in cloud computing vendors like
Yeah.
AWS, for example,
Yeah.
when you want to initiate a Kubernetes cluster, you pay, for example, $75. Just they can manage the control plane.
Yeah.
So if you want to separate each environment on each cluster, you would have to pay 75, 75, 75. So do you actually recommend that, or you can just separate it like basically lower environments on a cluster and higher or upper environments on another cluster, or like each environment should be on a cluster?
In general, I would avoid to have to do a relationship, one environment, one cluster, because on a cluster with the proper Kubernetes namespaces, should be able to manage several environments.
Yeah.
I would say this is what I recommend. And about this, for instance, we have, I would say, organized our environment and we have labeled them. Development, QA environment, demo environment, and so on. But we have three, four main group like this, because we have different SLA also. So I won't do the relationship one environment, one cluster, because on one cluster, we should be able to manage several environments.
Yeah. So we would say like lower environment, like dev staging or dev and QA on on a cluster and maybe prod on another cluster based on SLA and business case.
Yes, exactly. On a dev cluster, for instance, we can try specific upgrade, we can break things and so on. On the QA, higher SLA, and pre-prod, demo, and so on, higher SLA. So it's better to separate like this.
Yeah. So another question is, what signals actually tell you that a cluster is being over-provisioned?
Yes, this is what I said previously. For
Yeah.
instance, on the monitoring observability, yes, we should have dashboard on the node utilization. If it's below 50% consistently, I would say, for days and so on, yeah, this is a signal. I mean, this is a signal. And especially if the cluster doesn't scale down, if you have empty node and if it doesn't scale down, this is something we face and it's a huge signal. We can check also the request to usage ratio, for instance. We pay attention in our observability monitoring that we try to spot, pods in which request, 3 times what they actually use.
Yeah.
This is a kind of indicator, I would say.
So we were talking about multi-environment, multi-cluster setup. But how about small workloads? Like, how can small workloads still have huge bills, on cloud, which is very often, it happens a lot.
Yeah. So you have answered this, Maya, just before, because, there is a minimal infrastructure cost, with the control plane, the CNI, the coordinates, the ingress controller, your monitoring stack also on this. So even if you deploy a single point, there is a kind of baseline cost, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes it's unnecessary to deploy on Kubernetes. If you have a very small workload, it's actually going to cost you more than to having it maintained by your DevOps team, let's say, for example.
Yeah. Sometimes our developers, they work on a specific part of our solution. So they deploy locally, with Minikube on their laptop, they work properly. And on our Kubernetes cluster on the cloud, we have, I would say, the whole solution, for integration purpose and so on. So, yes.
Okay, I have a side question. Like, it's not related to cost, but since you mentioned Minikube, how many often encounter with the developers like, hey, it's working on my laptop, but once I deploy it on the cluster, it's not working. Like, how do you manage these kind of
This helps.
let's say friendly fights between the developers and the DevOps?
Yes, I would say that it's also a matter of awareness and also education. I mean that it's not a pejorative, I would say. Because, in cloud native, to master properly Kubernetes, the orchestration, you need to have, knowledge about networking, about storage, all of these things, infrastructure-wise, which means that the developer, for instance, if there are some fight, he has to understand that maybe on the production environment, we have a different networking, because on his laptop, he has only one network and so on. Things are simplified and so on. You see, he can ask. This is the kind of things. So what I mean is there is also, I would say, what we try to do is to train people about this, because developers, they are more focused on their source code, developing the application, accessing with an API, and that's all. But to understand properly the infrastructure part with InfraOps, DevOps, and so on, we need to share the knowledge and to do this. For instance, Chad, what I have launched recently, the last 2 years, is about the CNCF certification, CKA and CKAD, are very good certification to understand how it works properly for the cloud.
That's totally right. Yes.
Once they have this, the CKAD, for instance, they have a better understanding. They do not need to do DevOps or operational things like this, but they have a proper understanding to discuss, to communicate with DevOps.
That's actually very good, neat idea. At least, at least even if the main role of the developer is to do code, at least the coder or the developer at least has
Basic
some
understanding.
knowledge, yeah, basic understanding about Kubernetes and the clusters, which is
Deployment,
very very,
yes. Yeah, and
it's very
deployment.
good idea.
Yeah, this is, I would say, the human part because in any transformation, people are focusing on the technical side. So we learn the new technology, okay? And then they try to put in place governance and so on. But we still have some fight or resistance to change because of the human side. And the human side, people can be lazy, they can be afraid of. Kubernetes can look complicated and so on. And then there is a key point which unlock a lot of things on my side is the onboarding side. The onboarding, it means that this developer, that he has the knowledge, okay, he has the knowledge, but that he has some practical example, okay, maybe we should do, I don't know, a deployment with this developer on AKS, on the cloud, just for him. And maybe he has some, I would say, blocking issue and so on. And that's why with my teams, we work on enabling, I would say, our solution on Azure is one thing. We have automated that with DevOps, but at the same time, we have shared knowledge and we have built onboarding program, sharing the knowledge, knowing the technology, CKAD, CKA, for instance, but also practical example. Okay, you would like to deploy your solution from Minikube to AKS. Okay, we'll do it with you. But by doing this with one team, we are able to extract the how-to. And this how-to will be reusable for another team. And then the velocity increase and the understanding also. What I mean is we are handling, I would say, technologies, complex technologies, but it's not to complicate our life, it's to manage complex situation. And once the developer understood that, and we have the same vocabulary, the same level of knowledge, we separate the responsibility. The ops will manage the deployment and so on. The SRE will ensure that the deployment is up and ready, first point of contact. And the developer understood that the DevOps is a friend. You see what I so,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I got your idea. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, Maya, I talk a bit too much. Just cut me if I give
No,
you.
no,
Not at
no.
all, not at all. We have
We're
like
actually learning.
we have another hour, so you please take much as your time.
Just
Just
guide
talk.
me, guide me. I used to repeat myself a bit. My wife used to say me.
It's
me.
it's fine. It's totally fine.
Okay.
Actually, we're learning a lot from your experience, especially the relationship between the developer and the DevOps, and even the QA always has some tension in it. And that your answer was amazing. Actually, we actually need to start implementing that DevOps is actually your friend, not your enemy. So yeah, that was interesting.
Maya, DevOps is not a team. Huh? It's an anti-pattern. This DevOps is really a collaboration between
Yeah.
dev and ops, simply. But often, if you flag someone DevOps, people will segregate, and that's it.
Yeah,
Exactly,
that's
because the core concept of DevOps, like once it's come live, like in 26, like by a Belgian project manager, like the core solving issue for uh, initiating DevOps is to close the gap between the developers, QA, and the operation. So the DevOps is a center hub between all of these parties, and unfortunately, like this is this is not a common knowledge between like a lot of developers and the DevOps, and it's coming like with a friendly fire, let's say, between these people, and it's causing a lot of issues. So managing a team with a different responsibilities is a huge responsibility. So I feel you, Christian.
Yeah,
I'm
that's it.
trying my best to feel you, but definitely you had some headaches like with with the team because of this.
Shad, that's the key in any organization, it's a kind of secret weapon in which in any organization, silos are healthy because we need ownership, specific
Mhm.
role. But to break these silos in a healthy way, the only thing is, for me, the right answer is the communication and the collaboration. And it starts always like this. It's the only way to break the silos in a healthy way. Today, we are talking about dev and ops with DevOps, but tomorrow we can talk about DevOps and SRE, you see, SRE and QA tech, and so on. So it's the same thing. It's the same thing. For instance,
Yes.
with dev and ops, once the developer has the CKey ID, it's really much more easier to communicate with developer once they have the CKID certification.
Yeah. They have the awareness, the conscience to actually interact and talk to them.
Yeah. One last thing, sorry, Maya. I have studied recently Knative. Have you heard about this?
I'm sorry,
Knative.
what? Knative?
Yes, it's a CNCF project. Maybe Shad?
Yes.
Knative?
Yeah. Knative. Actually, I had a demo actually on it, like on the current company right now. So I'm working at Sita as an
Okay.
site reliability engineer.
Okay.
So I had a chance actually to look over the K for the K, because I see like some commands on it. It's similar actually to the Kubernetes, but I noticed that the command or the CMD command actually it's much easier than the normal K8, let's say K8s.
Okay. So just for, yeah, okay. So Maya, for you, I would say that Knative will enable the scale to 0 for your pods. And for some use case, it can be useful to manage the cost properly.
Yeah.
Because if you have a pod running, okay, for hours, but you will use it for 1 or 2 requests, Knative can scale it down when it's idle.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's a serverless containers.
Yes, serverless container. So, but keep in mind that when you have a new request, there is, a cold start. So you have to think twice before using this. But
Yeah,
this is,
definitely.
this is something which can help for this. And you have on my LinkedIn a carousel about this, Maya.
Yeah. So
So
we have two questions in the chat.
Yes, please.
The first question's from Muhammad. He said, will cost be precedence over performance? Very good question, actually.
Good question.
When
I would
cost
say that,
comes before,
yeah,
performance.
yeah, I would say it's a matter of SLA, for instance, because with my teams, they often say that yes, we don't want to waste money. We would like to use the cost rightly, and sometimes they prefer to have a lower SLA, lower performance, okay, in order to manage the cost. And for me, it's the opposite. I mean that you should reach the performance you need in order to work properly.
Yeah.
And if it's the cost, so we have to pay for this. The only thing is not to use the cost wisely. This is it. So I would say, Mohamed, yes, you should reach the performance you need in order to work properly, for your solution to work properly. And this is the cost we have to pay. That's it.
So there is another question as well.
Yeah.
He says, "Hello, Christian. Good evening.
Yeah. Hello.
How can we optimize cost if we want to monitor the critical nodes because our application is running on that node?"
can I answer this question?
Please go ahead. I will.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, well, to optimize the cost of monitoring critical nodes where your application runs, you should focus on high value metrics and sampling efficiency rather than tracking everything at high resolution. So, for example, like one of the key strategies you can use is selective logging. Instead of full debugging logging, you can ingest only high priority or error logs into, let's say, premium storage, like the blob storage inside like Azure. Uh, you can use a specialized, like another technique or another strategy. You can use like specialized cost tools. There is like I think there is like one open source tool called Open Cost. This is to map resources usage directly to the financial impact. And this is actually very good because it's identifying exactly which critical, like between double quotation, services are over provisioned. Another technique you can use is automated right sizing. So, like using VPA is recommended, which is VPA is vertical pod autoscaler, is actually very recommended to at least find the absolute minimum CPU and memory for your application need to stay stable on these critical nodes. Uh, you can also tune the data gradually, like collect high frequency matrices for critical components for standard node health, like increasing this scraping interval, like from let's say from 15 seconds to 60 seconds. This is will reduce the data volume and the storage costs that you are pulling from the cluster itself.
Shad,
Did it good?
Shad, I will send you a job offer at the end of this. I will send you, and you will have a camera. No worries, you will have the camera.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna okay. The next time I'm gonna purchase the camera only for you, my friend.
Yes, yes, it's a very good answer, Shad. But what I keep in mind is yes, it's a matter of knowledge also. You are sharing the knowledge to your colleague, and this really helps, I would say, in that case.
So,
Yeah.
to my favorite subject, actually, this is like my core responsibility. So I love this. So
Mhm.
so we're gonna actually jump into the observability and tooling. So we talked like on this session we talk about observability and how it's actually a very great tool to monitor and the cost and everything. Uh, how the observability or the monitoring tool starts meaningfully to impact the cost.
I would say immediately. I mean,
Oh wow.
because this is something we should not put too late. For instance, there is a kind of paradox in which that you need to control your cost, to manage your cost, but the observability is itself a significant cost. So that's why when you put that in place, for me, it's meaningful as soon as you put that in place. And the earlier, the better from my point of view.
And okay, so in this case, what is the most common observability mistakes you see early on? And since like you did this and you moved from on-prem to cloud environment, of course you encountered like these mistakes early on because because like when you rely on the providers or the cloud providers monitoring, it's become very costly if you didn't optimize it correctly.
Yeah.
how how these mistakes, how you can like caught these mistakes early before it's becoming a painful cost?
Yes, I would say that, yes, already mentioned by Maya, like collecting everything, analyzing nothing, I would say.
Yeah.
When teams enable verbose logging on every services, we don't have set up alerts and so on. So we pay to store data nobody looks at in that case. And second part, yes, what I said, I would say that the observability should be treated early as possible, I would say, early as possible. Because otherwise, if we do not do this, the dev team will over-instrument, to compensate the logs, to compensate the visibility gap, I would say. And this will cost this will cost at the start.
Well, okay. So for using the tools or the monitoring tools, um, like open source tools with paid or SaaS tools on the fintech domain, let's say, to be specified. What for a question? What do you prefer? Do you prefer like, yeah, I can manage like my monitoring, my dashboards, my everything on an open source on open source software, and I have like the DevOps and SREs will manage the whole monitoring tools, or do you prefer to go, or no, I'm a Christian, I need actually to need like more tools that it's not available on the open project tools, that I need to go like something like Dynatrace. Like for you as a Christian, do you prefer an open source tools or SaaS tools?
So I would say it's a matter of maturity. I would say that at the beginning, for sure, I will always start with the open source tool, which means that currently we are relying on Prometheus, Loki, Grafana for the visualization, the Open Telemetry standard for the tracing, and we manage that on our own. And until now, we are getting matured and matured. Okay, our maturity is growing. It's true that, for instance, at one moment, depending on the SLA, depending on our maturity, we might have to make some strategic choice, but it's still a matter of cost. For instance, I have been approached by Datadog, for instance,
Datadog, yes.
Grafana Cloud also, you know, and Dynatrace, no. But yes, it's a matter of maturity for me. So until now, we're able to step forward with the open source part. So we'll stay like this, okay? But it depends also on the staffing.
Yeah.
You see, my point
Yes.
is it depends on staffing and knowledge, because it's like with the cloud computing. If I decide to work with Datadog or Dynatrace, it means that I will delegate. And when I delegate, it means that I will inherit all the experience with all their dashboarding, all the experience from all the client and so on. On the other side, relying on open source, yes, according to my current staffing, I have to build my own dashboard and things like this. But still a matter of maturity. Why? Because even in this first stage with the open source, I need to understand how efficient I should monitor my application and how it is built. You see, I should not go too early with Datadog, Dynatrace. I should first build my own experience first.
Yes, and I'm 100% with you on this case. Yes, you should start with open source, then you go with the SaaS if the workload is required and you need like extra features is not, or it's not actually on the open source, because some features in these tools actually are hard to manage. I know it's like there is a lot of like contributors, and a lot of tools is backed up by the community, but you don't always have the answer for a specific issue you face it on your environment, and that's why that's coming the SaaS, which is covers the technical part, because they 100% know their product, and it's becoming actually much easier for you to deal with the support and not just waiting for the community to answer you.
Yeah, it's a matter of trade-off, about cost, about your staffing. If you choose to delegate is one thing, but you have to pay for this. So the cost for the maintenance, doing your own dashboard, how does it cost if you delegate to and I pay attention also to not to be vendor lock,
Yeah.
because for instance, Datadog has its own agent, even if they say that they are compliant with open telemetry, no problem. But it's the same, I would say, approach on my side. I would like to stay cloud agnostic. That's why we rely on Kubernetes. But I don't want to be vendor lock with Azure, AWS, or GCP, I would say.
Yeah.
You should be able to do this. So, yeah, I hope it answers your question.
Yes. So it's basically don't put your eggs on just one in one plate. Exactly.
Yes, but in a strategic way, it can make
exactly.
sense. It can make sense to say that finally I won't invest into observability. I will delegate to Dynatrace or Datadog. You see, but it's a strategic decision. But let's start first with the open source. It's a good way to understand your system and your needs and to get matured.
So we have a question. Sorry, Christian. We have a
Yeah.
question from Muhammad.
Yeah.
What's cost life cycle methodology that applies on Kubernetes? And it can, and like a follow up question to that can be applied. You can see the questions on the chat if you want.
On the chat. Sorry, I cannot see the chat. I don't know why. I click on the chat, but
Nothing
empty.
sure. Is it chat or DMs?
or DMs? No,
No,
I
it's
don't
chat.
have. No, I don't have the question. So it's a life cycle for Kubernetes.
So yeah, exactly. So the cost life cycle methodology that applies on Kubernetes.
Wait, let me send it to you actually on the
You mean a process, methodology process like the FinOps part? I don't understand.
I think it's related to the FinOps. I think Muhammad's questions related to the FinOps.
let's give Muhammad. Muhammad, بتقدر تعطينا more context? Can you give us more context so we can answer your question in a better way? Let's go to Maulik's question until Muhammad gives us more context about his question.
I mean the FinOps and get a methodology compatible with Kubernetes as a FinOps compatible.
The FinOps is a framework. It's not a technology. It's a framework.
Yeah, and, yes, it's the framework, but what the framework is suitable for Kubernetes. You know, there's different frameworks and methodologies, life cycles. It can be applied with any technology. Especially, so what's the compatible with the Kubernetes? I mean, uh, all Kubernetes in resources, everything. I mean.
What I can say is for Kubernetes in FinOps, it's very important to label properly your workload in that case. Why? Because, for instance, I will share with you, Mohamed, how we use the FinOps part. We have one SRE who will monitor the cost, okay, but cluster by cluster, and on each cluster, deployment per deployment. And this is what we call the showback. And the showback, we check that on a weekly basis. Every Monday, he's checking that. And thanks to the monitoring tool we have on Azure, for instance, the Azure monitoring tool, we can have a forecast for the end of the month. And we compare month by month. In that case, taking into account our activity. Because on a quarter, we will have lower activity at the first month, but we have a higher activity at the end of the month because we have our delivery, we have our QA campaign, and we have more demo. So on a weekly basis, we are checking the showback, cost by cost, cluster by cluster, environment by environment. We try to spot, I would say, increasing cost or anomaly, and so on. And that's it. We're working like this.
Okay. So, an enterprise, who will be responsible to define the framework? Who will define the framework for the communities per enterprise or any consumer? In that case.
Okay. So in our company, our governance is set by SRE Finance, which is a FinOps practitioner. Okay. And then we will rely on the shared accountability, which means that for my product, for instance, I'm the one who will, with my colleague, who will check all these costs and so on, and we'll check the governance with the central guy. And on a quarterly basis, we'll reconcile with the finance to be sure that the forecasted cost budget fit to the current cost.
Thanks.
I think, Mohamed, what will help you if you go to the FinOps website, or maybe there is a book also, which can give you a lot of light.
If you want, Christian, I think you can share your screen. I give you moderator access.
Yes, no, I think it's not needed. I will just share in the chat the website for Mohamed. I will just
Okay.
go to-
Thanks, Christian.
Yeah.
So we have another questions. I'm gonna answer this one
Yeah.
on behalf of you, Christian. So can we use Elastic Cloud platform for monitoring Kubernetes workloads? That's definitely yes. You can use Elastic Cloud to monitor Kubernetes workload across on-premises and on the cloud. AKS, you can use it on AKS, GKE, AKS, or also on hybrid environments. It's to provide unified observability platform that collecting logs, matrices, application performance, traces, all of these, you can see it on a single view. And the key components for the monitoring is actually three parts. So you have the Elastic Agent. Elastic Agent is a single agent is being deployed on each Kubernetes node, automatically collects the system metrics, container stats, all logs for all the running services inside all of these nodes. You have Kubernetes integration also. Kubernetes integration is a pre-configured integration. It's pulling data from the core components like the kubelet API, the kube state metrics, which is KSM, and the API server. And last but not least, you have the Elastic APM, which is application performance monitoring, which is used actually to monitor application performance. Helps you actually. It helps a lot linking the latency spikes directly to the Kubernetes pods or the resources usage. Because trust me, when you have a very latency spikes, you're gonna definitely need matrices and dashboards to monitor this. Because like if you are using, let's say, the Grafana stack, you can use Loki and Tempo together, so you can log the traces and see every span exactly what's happening to these requests.
Makes sense.
Exactly, makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, something centralized and globally that can be used across multiple workloads or multiple environments.
Exactly. So that's why, like, a Christian is encouraging us to not go to vendor lock
Yeah.
Yeah.
with anything, because again, you may be able to work with multiple vendors. I need something generic that can talk with all of these providers. I'm gonna jump into the next question for me. So, since you mentioned when you answering Muhammad's question regarding the cost life cycle methodology, you mentioned forecasting, which is a very important piece, let's say, as an SRE, because relying on forecasting, you need to know at least, as you said, quarterly or half annually or annually, so you make sure that you are within your budget. So for you, Christian, do you rely on a cloud provider like Azure to give you the forecasting, or you do your own calculations?
Very good question, Chad. In fact, no, I'm not using 100% the cost management tool from the cloud provider because I'm relying on an external tool, which is Cloudability from Aptio. Do you know this
Yes.
one? Okay. Why? Because we have a specific partnership, with Microsoft, and we can have, a specific agreement in that case. And this is such a thing we can integrate into our computation calculation with Aptio Cloudability. And other thing also, we have also deployment on Amazon. So we have also a multi-cloud strategy in which in Aptio, we can monitor the cloud cost from multi-cloud, from this.
Yes.
That's why, once again, for the monitoring, I rely on Azure monitoring tool for specific tasks and so on. I extract specific figures like the cost for the storage and so on. But the real figure rely on my external tool, Cloudability, because of the specificity in which we have to put in place, reserve instance and also specific agreement on the saving in that case. So once again, not to be vendor lock at that level also.
Very nice. So
Yeah.
due to the recent outages that happened on AWS and Azure and Google and also Cloudflare,
Yeah.
how your point of view has been changed on a cost level, or on, let's say, on a cost level, that I should not rely on just one provider?
Yes, I mean that, yes, that's why, if you have a multi-cloud strategy, I would say you will really mitigate this outage because, when some deployment are failing on AKS, you can rely on the one on EKS, on Amazon and so on. That's why I would say that having a multi-cloud strategy, will make you more flexible, more stronger, I would say. Because if you put everything on Azure and you have this outage, and so, but the SLA is quite high. I mean that last year I think I got outage with Azure. I think 2 times 2 hours. I think 2 times 2 hours.
So, since you dealt with a Kubernetes environments a lot, where do you see the most waste on these environments? Like the waste, the most waste from money wise or cost wise?
Cost wise, it's when we over provision our resource.
That's totally true. Yes.
Simply like this. In fact, simply like this. There are some mistakes, in which some developers they set the wrong configuration, for the retime policy for the persistent volume, for instance. But it's a growing cost and so on. But over provisioning, this is quite obvious. I mean, when we have tons of nodes, which is over provision, or just provision in case, because we want to ensure that the application won't crash and so on. That's why it required really discipline to know your workload, how it works, and to right size properly. And it required discipline because the right sizing you have done today might be the same in 1 month, It's
yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have one question, one last question from my end.
Go ahead.
So, why are ideal resources on Kubernetes are so easy to ignore?
Yeah. Idle resource.
Yes, because I would say it's not so obvious for a developer because when they deploy their services, Kubernetes will abstract infrastructure for them, and on one side it's a good thing because they just have to focus on their workload, but on the other side it's also a risk for the cost. For instance, when you write your YAML and you deploy on the Kubernetes cluster, you just see that it works. That's all. But there's no, I would say, natural feedback loop about the cost for them. So they're creating the resource, but they are not also the same people who will pay for them. So I think that there is this abstraction in which we just focus on deploying, as a developer, on deploying our workload, but we do not think directly to the cost.
Because the main concern for the developers is to make sure that the application is running and working. So that's why the SREs and the DevOps actually coming to this part to make sure that, I deployed your application. It seems actually working and very great, but I see there is a lot of resources as being deployed, but it's not used. Why? So
Yeah.
these like one of the biggest, and unfortunately is like unfortunately, like a lot of SREs, they don't know that, but one of the main responsibilities of an SRE is a constant improvement. It's not a DevOps. I'm 100%. It's not a DevOps responsibility. It's an SRE, and a lot of people or a lot of engineers actually confuse for this specific responsibility. Like, even if the application is being deployed, like you will find a lot of areas you can optimize the application from cost wise and resources wise.
Yeah. There is a solution for this. Shad is the chargeback. Do you know this term? The
Charge
chargeback?
back.
No, because I've mentioned the showback from the FinOps approach, but there is also the chargeback in which for each dev team, okay, you assign to them a budget. In that case, they have access also to the dashboard for the cost and so on. And the thing is, they should take the ownership. This is the shared accountability on the cost, with the support of SRE for sure. But this is a part of the FinOps approach also.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think you can. Do you know the FinOps approach, Shad? I think yes, maybe. No.
A different approach.
FinOps approach. Have you read?
Uh, well, I know that, like, I know the key concepts for the FinOps, but right now, like, I'm new at an SRE. I know the, like, as a DevOps, like, I know the concept of the SRE because it was part of my job.
Yeah.
But since I'm focusing right now on the SRE responsibilities, yeah, I'm being exposed more of let's say tick and traps of an SRE, how to optimize, improve, how to use this, not using that, raise questions, raise like why we are using this, why we're using not. But unfortunately, like most of the environments that I'm dealing right now on is on a prem. So I'm still like, well, the Kubernetes piece is still pretty new at the company.
Okay.
So that's what I'm trying to do right now, is to introduce these FinOps techniques and ticks and traps to the company. But company process taking a long time. You need to make a business study. You need to business case, and you need to
You
make a
see,
presentation for it, and the whole yard. Let's say so. It's taking time, but I'm trying my
So
best here.
in that case, yes, in that case, Shad, maybe if I may, I would say two things I can share with you. Small piece of advice in that case.
Please.
As an SRE, you're monitoring the application and you're improving, I would say, the deployment and so on to ensure the SLA and so on. Don't hesitate to rely on the policy as code, like Kyverno, in order to put guardrails according to what you're improving day by day. For instance, if you discover that, I don't know, some workload, the resource request is missing, for instance, the limits is missing, or it's not the limit range or resource quota are not set, you can write policy for that, to block the deployment, or at least to warn the developer if there are missing guardrails like this. And about the cost itself, try to share this knowledge to the team, to the dev team, and try also to, I would say, make them aware about this.
Yeah, definitely.
Just step by step, yeah.
Thank you so
There
much.
is a human part. There is a human part in this.
Yes.
I have a question related to refactory or migration to Kubernetes from when you deploy application or project. How do the cost will be factored in that?
How the cost will be?
Will be factored when you do refactoring, when you refactor or migration the apps into Kubernetes deployment.
Okay.
How the cost will be here and that?
Oh, the cost will depend on the cloud services you will use. Okay. About the tier you will choose for the cloud services you will need. For instance, the storage. Is it a premium tier, whatever? As we said, it depends also how you have sized properly your Kubernetes workload, because you will pay the bill according to the number of nodes you will use in your cluster.
Uh, okay, and then for a stage like a dev and product and testing, each environment has its own cost, and that how to be managed yeah, on those environments. Each environment has own cost. We want to minimize it to a minimum at least in the project. So how will we what the methodology can be done can be
So
helped as our assist us in that.
okay, so the first thing is the monitoring part. You should label your deployment properly, dev, QA, prod, and so on. Okay. Once you monitor that properly, you can optimize. You cannot optimize what you cannot see. This is the
Yeah.
first thing. And second thing, you have to also work, I would say, audience by audience. I mean that the configuration, the SLA is not the same from the dev to the QA to the prod and pre-prod. So you have to optimize according to this. And I think, Mohamed, you have to have a proper knowledge on the cloud native side, Kubernetes, and to map with the cloud services you will use. And then you can optimize. For instance,
So
maybe for the storage, you will need a premium tier for the pre-prod, but not for the dev stage.
Yeah.
This is just an
okay,
example.
okay. So if early stage I have the cost for data resource, but in the meantime in each environment the cost become higher for in each environment. You will see in the
Not, not,
different will be in the resources. It will be you see in the performance is become higher and the cost will be higher
no,
than
not,
the early stage.
not especially higher, but just different. Just
Uh,
different. Okay.
will be different in a resource or in the
Because
with
you can have environment with higher SLA, okay, but you do not need
uh,
this environment 24 hours on 7, for instance.
okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Thanks.
Continuing on Christian,
Yeah.
Muhammad, I'm gonna speak to him in Arabic so we can have more. So محمد هو قصده إنه same ممكن يكون same cost بس different resources. So in lower environments, maybe networking costs can be higher than storage costs. It can be the same cost for different environments, but it differs in the actual resources. Still, we want to finish this session by recapping everything we said.
Okay.
That observability is number one. It's really important, and it's also a cumulative process. So from month to month, we need to have observability, we need to have the data and everything else. And it's very important, as Christian said. Also, we need to look into auto-scaling resources. We need to always learn, optimize. We need, as you said, to go with the FinOps to inform, to optimize, and to operate. And always we need to take consideration the cost perspective, also the performance perspective. It's one of the important pillars in the cloud pillars. So we all know that we have 6 pillars and all cloud vendors. And Kristen, do you have anything you want to add before we actually finish this session?
Yes, maybe you sum up very well, Maya. We send you also a job offer, Maya. No problem. You're hired. Yeah, what I can say is, yes, about the cost, there are some, I would say, misleading idea at the beginning, like on the cloud, it's expensive, for instance. This is something
Yeah.
I heard often. But in this session, the bottom line is we have to do our own homework, which means that we should master and know properly the technology. So today it's Kubernetes, cloud native. That's why certification like CKA, CKAD can help. We have also to link the dot properly with our solution, which means that there are decisions by design which can impact how it will be deployed and used, impact the cost on the cloud computing. And then we have also to delegate to the cloud computing, but it doesn't mean that we have nothing to do. We delegate is one thing, but the hyperscaler, Microsoft, Amazon will only do exactly what you ask, which means that you have to configure properly and to choose the right cloud services, to configure them properly, to compose properly, and then rely on the FinOps as a framework to monitor all of this, to optimize and to operate in a continuous way.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Well,
I have,
Yeah.
I just have one last note, like just
Yeah.
one final note.
Yeah.
Guys, please make sure. I'm gonna. I always say this, like at the end of each session. Always take backup and always label everything, please. Thank you.
Label.
Shad has bad experience with backups, that's why.
Yeah.
And backups can cost also, Chad.
Yeah.
It can be
Yeah,
costly
exactly.
also. That's why we have to choose wisely the frequency and so on.
Yeah, that's well. Thank you guys for joining, and a special thank you for you, Christian, for actually we had the pleasure to listen and for you to join. Share your experience on all of this knowledge. I have learned a lot. I have
Really?
the most interesting part. All of it is interesting, but what actually hit me the most was the way we need to collaborate with other teams, the way you said it, that we have to share knowledge, we have to we are a team, we're not enemies. So it was a very insightful and fruitful session. Again, thank you, Christian, for this session. Let me stop the recording.